Woo! Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here, and welcome to the Kayak Fishing Show live. As always, brought to you by all of our great sponsors. Scrolling along the bottom there, Seagar, Siegler, Jackson, Band of Anglers, of course, Ray Marine, NRS. I got some new stuff from NRS arrived just before the show started here, so I'll be showing that to you on our next live show. Pretty stoked on that. And everybody's running late today. So my good buddy Jeff Herman is going to be joining us a little bit later. If you are new to these shows, every Tuesday and Thursday, we air old episodes of the Kayak Fishing Show along with live commentary. Sometimes I can get somebody who was on that trip to join me on the live broadcast, but we always welcome all your questions, comments, and all that. It's all about just sharing our old trips and having a good time. These Tuesday editions are always brought to you by a band of anglers, our good friend Patrick Sebile. And every Tuesday he's coming in now. So we just started this new thing starting, I guess this is the first one, where we will go over a specific lure. So he's going to talk about, where we kind of went over categories of lures before, different brands of the lures, and now he's going to go over specific lures, talk to you about that lure, how it's designed, and more importantly, how to fish it. So we'll be bringing Patrick on here in a second, but also along with that, there will be a discount code. See it right there, and that will be good for the week, and that will be on the hyperelastic dart spin, which is the lure we're talking about today. Oh, you know what? I forgot to draw the winner from the last show. So after this show is over, I'm going to draw the winner from last week, and then I will put that up because I totally forgot. Like I said, we've been going kind of crazy. I've got construction going on at my house right now. Patrick's running around with his head cut off. He literally just showed up about 2 seconds before we started here. So Liam Young, how you doing, man? Always the first one to check in, watching over at Kayak Fishing Tales. And I do encourage people to watch on Kayak Fishing Tales, our YouTube channel, and subscribe, because if you subscribe to that, you are much more likely to be notified of when we come on live. Pamela Worth, our good friend in Florida, loves the dart spin. Snook and Reds love it too. So wait. I gotta hit this one first. We love you from Romania. I've never had love from Romania before. I'm pretty excited about that. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. So with no further ado, let's bring on my friend, Patrick Sebile. Patrick, how are you?
Hey, doing good. A bit sweaty. I was running, as you mentioned. I literally arrived like 30 seconds before the show started. I got that phone call that I must answer. So glad to be with you like every week.
Yeah, and it's warm there. It's warm here. It's like 80 degrees here. So, our thoughts to our friends who froze their butts off. And I see a lot of friends fixing a lot of broken pipes and all that fun stuff. So I'm glad I don't have to go through that. So, Patrick, I'm going to check my email one more time, see if it arrived. It did not. So Patrick was going to send me some video so we could have some video to accompany the lure we're talking about today, which is the hyperelastic dart spin. I love this lure. I've caught about 30 different species of fish on this lure. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you the whole screen, Patrick. And why don't you tell us, why is this lure so effective? What's the best way to fish it? How do you rig it? All that fun stuff.
Sure. And actually, for you guys and girls who are joining us, I want you to know that my good friend Jim was actually one of the very, very first one in the world who have some prototypes in his hand, and he was also one of the very first one in the world to have the final lure in his hand. So he definitely knows the lure well. And yes, I think he's done pretty well. So the original idea came a long time ago, and I like to share this color because it's a see-through color. So the idea of the dart spin came to me literally in my years when I was working with Maps and Mr. Twister, which is already a long time ago, like 20 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that. The idea was quite simple. In fact, it was a soft plastic body. So we can rig a jig head, a wide gap hook. I mean, really a lot of different ways of rigging it and weights, and the benefit of a blade. So I know last week I went in a much longer time and explanation overall. So I will not go there this time. But the blades are very effective for a key reason. When they spin in the water, no matter the shape of the blade, some like the willow, like this shape, is more the kind they stay pretty much on their axle and spin very fast. At the opposite, if you have a Colorado, it's a shorter but much wider blade. They spin slower but much more turbulence. And in both cases, those turbulence makes what's called an underwater signature. And that's like when a real bait fish swims through the water, it makes turbulence, and that's how predator fish can feel the presence of a prey. Now, a small blade like this, that's pretty small, right? But when it spins, it makes so many turbulences, it mimics the underwater signature of a fish that's like 6 or 8 inch long. That's why there's a lot of attractiveness by the turbulence. One may think that the flash are the most important thing. Well, it adds, but no, the most important is really by the test, by study of fish scientists, studying different type of lure and their action and reaction on predator fish, that the spinning blades just really attract very well all kind of predator. And that's part of why my good friend Jim cooks so many, about 40 different fish species. So having a blade together with a soft plastic body, so that soft plastic is a soft tough material. So the size I'm showing you today is the 4.5 inch, because I think the 4.5 is really the most go-to. I started with the 5.5, and another week we will talk more in detail of the 5.5, but the 4.5 is the most go-to because that's really a size you can use. I mean, you see, if you see closer to my hand, it's really not that big. 4.5 means the whole length from the nose to the end of the blade, and really you can catch a wide variety of fish doing that. If you want to fish like Pam from Florida, who make a text message a bit earlier, well, definitely the trout, the snook, the reds, baby tarpon love this size. You just can rig it on a small little jig head like this, and actually it darts when you retrieve with a darting action. Just jig the rod tip. It don't just go up and down. It really goes sideways, and that adds a lot in the action. On the drop itself too, the blade works all the time. So that little size not only can catch 1 or 2 pound trout, 3-4 pound reds, but also a 10-pound snook, but also much bigger fish. Can be really interested in that size. So that's why very important size to my point of view. Now, the soft tough material that makes the body, that material, I mentioned that, and I'm sure some of you were having a laugh when you hear that the other week. I read about that material from a company who actually was making high-end bed mattresses. But when I read the article about the material itself, it came to my mind that would be very interesting to turn that material into something that I can make fishing lures. So overall, it's the family of soft plastic that are called the hyperplastics. And actually, that's why I call the brand Hyperlastics. I remove the P in the middle, and also it highlight the lasting word, in the logo, because it does last. It lasts a lot. Overall, that same family, you will find some other great lure like Z-Man. They have in the same family of soft plastic, but the one they have is not exactly the same. It's a softer material, and it has benefit. They have a great product, so I'm a fan of Z-Man. They really do great stuff. The key difference is this material is tougher, harder, if you like, and that allows for much sharper. So it's difficult to make sure if the camera can make the focus pretty well, but I hope you can see it makes much sharper edge. And thanks to that, I was able, in the design itself, maybe we'll see better in a painted one. Yeah, I think you will see better. So thanks to that, I was able to put holes and slots. So actually, when you want to rig the lure, you don't even need to hook the plastic itself. That means I like to wet the hook so you just slide better in the hole. So you literally just glide and you don't need to hook the plastic because there's already the hole. And here, as you can see, this jig head. So you can use a regular jig head, it will work good. You can put a drop of super glue. I really like to do that a lot for intensive fishing, knowing that the bait may last dozens of fish. So it's worth to put a drop of glue. But you see here, one thing which I have a patent for, I have some jig heads and some, well, actually all of the hyperlastic lures, not just the dart spin, that have also those holes or slots underneath. So when you position the jig head, literally, you can see here, you can see the lead underneath. So it goes right in the spot. So you're sure 100% that you can properly rig the lure and make it ready to go and holding pretty well like this. So some of the key things about this guy is that we have a wire inside. I hope you can see that well enough.
Yeah, it's very clear.
So it's like a spring. So some may think, oh, I've already seen a blade with a spring and you just screw that in the plastic. Well, actually, that plastic is very tough. If you want to screw inside, I mean, good luck. You can, but it's going to be very hard. No, the patent we have here is that we put that screw inside the mold and then we inject that plastic. And that's thanks to that really holds very well, very long lasting because of this being put inside. So not only it's long lasting, but it does one thing, which is a key reason why it catches so many fish. When the blade spins, it creates those turbulence I mentioned before, but then it creates stress on the swivel, and that stress translates to the wire, and it makes the entire body, and that's why we were wishing to have an underwater video to show you, but the entire body have that kind of swim action and vibration, thanks to the spinning motion of the blade. So don't think that's just a straight soft plastic and a spinning blade. No, the whole thing is working, the whole thing is moving, and that really adds a lot into the attractiveness of this bait. So the 4.5 dart spin, that's my today's choice. We have several options, the regular color that are just injected. You know, they come in pack of 2. Here's the Pro. The Pro are painted. So those are duo packs, 2-piece. You can put on jig heads, you can put on wide gap hook. They are actually great bait also to put on drop shot. Of course, not if you just keep it, because then that's going to be like this, you know. But if you move gently sideways your up tip, or if you have the boat moving forward and stuff like, or drifting, you don't need much speed to have the whole thing working. And in that case, you simply hook the bait by the nose. Another great thing, if you like to fish on bass bed, which, you know, this is the case right now in Florida, and I guess pretty soon that will be the case in Southern California and someplace in Texas. The bass will go on the beds. So not only you can use that wide gap hook or that jig head and cast and retrieve, but because the body is buoyant, this guy will dive the blade first if you don't put a hook, or because you still need to hook the fish, right? If you have just a single hook that you hook in the nose or in the middle. In that case, you can cast that guy. He will dive like this, and typically the blade flutters on the drop. And once he reaches the bottom, that guy floats up like this. With your, you know, for this guy, you have just a 1-0 give or take single hook. He will float with that. So now you can put it on the bed, and every time you give a gentle twitch, the bait will go up, the blade will spin a bit, and then put a slack line again, he flutters back. Very interesting. And probably the last mention I will have is that's the perfect size if you want to rig those on Alabama rigs.
Well, you're talking about on the beds. What I have done in a little bit deeper water is put a small split shot up above the swivel, just kind of squeezed it and pinched it up in there, and then do that hook in the middle of the belly, and then just that little twitch. It literally just goes. You can really get a lot of motion and stay right in that spot. I mean, it's very, very effective. I really like fishing it that way. And of course, the way I fish it more often than not is with the weighted weedless, you know, fishing it through the kelp beds, fishing it through heavy cover. I mean, it's just a fantastic lure.
Yeah. The fact we have that cut on the back means when you have a wide gap hook, I don't have one with me right here, but when you have a wide gap hook, you know, on a regular soft plastic, you typically will hook the point of your hook into the soft plastic itself, but then the soft plastic got tear apart very quickly. In that case, because you have the cut on the back, as you can see here properly, well, you simply push down the hook point. So the hook point is hidden in the middle of the back and it's totally free. So at the moment the bass or calico or whatever bites it, then the hook goes up very freely and hook the fish very well. So you can leave the hook out if you fish in a clean open water, but if you arrive on a spot that needs to protect the hook point, then just do it.
And the donkey rig, putting two of them on one line, super effective. You get that darting action like this. Amazing. I mean, I love this lure. Like I said, I've caught so many different species of fish on it, and all sizes, just my go-to. One more time, folks, if you are interested, we do have a discount code, and that is right there, and that's going to give you that 15% off all week. Also, we're going to be giving away a pack of these, like a 3-pack. Is that what it was?
Yep.
I don't remember. To somebody who comments on this, and we will draw that before next week's show. And today I will remember to draw from last week's show, which I forgot.
Sure. Comment on it and you win it.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you being here, and we will see you next week.
See you next week. Bye, everybody. Have fun and stay tuned with the Kayak Fishing Show with Jim Sammons. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. All right. You know, like I said, always so much information. I mean, bring the questions, because the guy's got more fish than anybody you will ever meet. So if you want to learn about different ways of catching fish, particularly obviously on his lures, that's an awesome way to do it. So Michael Torres, oops, that was somebody else. Looks cool. Is there any smaller? Yes, there are much smaller. Here is kind of showing up there. That's not really the best for this light. A 3.5 inch. I've got a 2.5 inch here somewhere. Let's see. Is this it? Is this it? Because I'll show you if it is. Yeah. So there's a 2.5 inch. So, you know, you can see the size of that one. So yeah, variety of sizes. Awesome lure. So anyway, what we're doing here is, and I want to say hello to Michael because he's from where we do our shows, or where we're airing this show. I'm having a hard time talking here. So again, we air older episodes of the show. My guest here today has been on my show many times because we have such a great time fishing together. Plus the fact that he always was helping us set up shoots. This was a shoot that he helped set up, probably came up with the destination. Oh, I'm sure he came up with the destination and made all the connections and just did it for us. So, but we always had so much fun. The hard part has been getting him here on these live shows because he just works too much. And so we've got to get him to work less and come fishing with us more. So with no further ado, my very good friend, Jeff Herman.
What's up, man? I'm so glad to be on the show finally.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Well, combination of you work too much and I'm terrible about letting you know with enough notice.
Hey, no worries. It happens. What are you going to do?
How's things in Texas, brother? You guys, did you guys freeze up at all, or?
Yeah, man, it was pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie. We got lucky personally. My wife and I, we only had probably 3 or 4 hours of like transient blackouts, but there were people without power for like 3 or 4 days, and it was 14 degrees, 20 degrees. I mean, well below freezing. So it was no joke. We lost water for 4 or 5 days, or 3 or 4 days, which was a miserable experience in and of itself. But people that lost power and water, just not a something I would wish on anybody. But things are getting back to normal. Bright sunny day. It's great to be outside today, and just a good weather pattern going forward. But yeah, it was no joke for a while there.
How'd the inshore fish do in your area?
Man, I'm going to be real honest. Texas fisheries took a big hit, and I would tell anybody fishing the Texas bays over the course of the next 6 months to a year, it's time for CPR, catch, photo, and release. Don't string them up, man. There were a ton of dead trout, ton of dead redfish. One of the saddest things is the snook, which is a very warm water fish, had made a migration up the coast over the last decade or two. since the last big freeze, which was in the 80s. And you could catch snook as close to my house as Freeport, which is 20 or 30 miles away. And it's going to decimate, that freeze is going to have decimated the snook population in Texas. So I would tell everybody, please, please, please catch photo release for the next 6 months to a year. Let those fisheries recover a little bit if you can. So hopefully we'll get through it.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit of debate and finger pointing and that on some of the Texas fishing pages. People being called out for going fishing during this, and
yeah, when temperatures drop like that, trout, redfish, snook, everybody goes to warm water, deeper waters. And so if you know where the warm, deep water is, it's very easy to go pull 20 fish out of a pocket of water. So it's just something you really shouldn't do. And again, because of the amount of fish kills that we're seeing, we definitely want people to practice catch and release as much as possible going forward. Don't get me wrong. I love eating fish. I'm a big proponent of catch them and eat them if you're hungry. But right now is the time for catch and release.
I agree 100%. I mean, I catch and release too. I mean, I love to eat fish. I love to eat tuna and stuff, but you know, when you have a fishery that's been so impacted, you know, it's not going to hurt you to do some catch and release unless that's the only food you're getting. And there's not a whole lot of us that are like that, I don't think, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yes, it is your right to fish. The laws say you can fish and you can take fish, but that doesn't always mean it's the right thing to do at that situation. So hopefully everybody does the right thing, and you know, that fishery can come back, because I know I've had some great fish in there, and it's a tough one. So, but on to better subjects, more fun subject for sure. I aired the first half of this episode, or the first episode, because it was 2 episodes that we shot. I aired the first one last week. And so that was when we were out at the Outer K, and I don't remember the name of the actual outpost, Outpost K. What was it called? I don't remember.
You know, now that you said, if you wouldn't have asked me, it would have fallen off my tongue. But their outpost on that little K island was absolutely glorious. I mean, it is just a secluded, beautiful spot in the middle of nowhere, and a great fishery. I think that's where we jumped a bunch of the tarpon.
That's where we got tarpon, and I mean, it's like you were on your own little private island. It was such a cool place. But Belize River Lodge, and I want to make sure I pop that up here. So if anybody's interested, Belize River Lodge. I mean, you talk about the vibe of that place. So, like I said, I used to guide down in Mexico to one of the oldest resorts down in southern Baja, and it had that same kind of feel, you know, with old pictures of guys fishing down there, and you just got this nostalgic feel to it, right?
Well, it's like an old world lodge. I mean, if you read about a fishing lodge from the 1930s or 40s, that's what you would picture in your head, where you have the beautiful lodge, everybody gathered around the dinner table after the days of fishing, having cocktails and talking about what you caught. You don't see that much anymore. And when I met Misha Miles at the Houston Fishing Show, and I looked at their lodge, I was just enamored about the idea of being able to set up a trip there. And it only got better when we met the proprietor, the original owner, Mike, and his wife, Marguerite. I mean, it's like a story out of a movie. You can't make that stuff up. It's a unique lodge, and the fact that it's still available for people to go to. You want to chase bones and tarpon and all the other fish they have down there. You can't find a better space to spend a weekend or a weekend in than Belize River Lodge. It really is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now, you've been there a couple times, right? I don't remember if you went there before we did or after we did.
I found out about it before we went, and then we all went down there. It was kind of a crappy trip for me. I threw my back out the very first day of the shoot, if I remember correctly. And so I went back with a good friend of mine named Scott Knoll, Captain Scott Knoll, like 6 months later or a year later, to try to get another fish story out of there. Ended up with a great bee story and some smaller fish, but no big tarpon.
That's right. You got attacked by bees.
By killer bees. Yeah, one of the most messed. And I'm mildly allergic, so, and with no EpiPen, so it was quite a gong show. But we managed to make it through and had just a great time. So
yeah. I mean, the food amazing. The sitting around for conversation, because the old man would sit at the head of the table, just ruling the place, and you could literally sit there and listen to him tell stories about the history, his history in Belize and the history of the lodge. You could just sit there and listen, and you don't even have to talk. You just sit back and listen.
Yeah. Well, and the food that they served, there's a specialty in Belize called a fried jack, which is just a variation on a tortilla or a pancake or whatever. But those fried jacks, I still dream about them today. I don't know what it is about the dough and how they made those, but those were just some of the best breakfast treats I've ever had. And I'm sure Will Richardson, if he was around, would agree 100%.
Yeah.
I know he was a fan.
Yeah, but he probably wouldn't eat them now because he's all like Mr.
That's right.
Health
Yeah,
food,
that's right.
Working out all the time. Oh, my wife, of course, remembers Long K Outpost.
There you go. Thanks, Aileen.
Thank you, Aileen. Well, because she went there with me because we went again.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
We shot another episode there, and which was 100% fly fishing, which was really fun in 25-mile-an-hour winds.
Wow.
But it's still a place I want to go back. I mean, we've had some tough trips, but it's such a cool place. And like I said, that Long K Outpost, to me, I mean, I could just stay there. You put me on that for a month and I'd be happy.
Well, one of the things we never did down there was try to chase Kubera snapper. And I think, that's like a dream trip, would be to go down there and spend like a week throwing at the mangroves to try to catch one of those giant snappers and pull one of those devilfish off of those mangroves. And there are guys that go down there just for that only. They don't fish for tarpon. They don't fish for snook. They don't fish for anything else, not cuda, nothing while they're down there, just those big giant snapper. And that's something that would be a dream trip, and Long K Outpost would be perfect for that.
Yeah. Like I said, it's so cool. And I mean, everything about it. But anyway, so I say we get this episode rolling. Let's go back and relive a few of these memories so we can actually remember some of it. Somebody did ask what the name of the lodge was again. So there it is, Belize River Lodge, and it's BelizeRiverLodge.com. So let's air this episode.
This week on the Kayak Fishing Show, we're still in Belize. We've been out at Long K Lodge, out remote.
Oh, there it is.
We're headed back to the main lodge on the river, and we're going to still be chasing after more big fish. It's going to be a great show. Stick around.
Word to the wise, if your mama ain't taught you. Don't stand in front of a man and a fish he ain't caught yet. Honey, if the world calls me, tell him I'm fishing.
Oh, the lodge I used to guide at, Bill, was Punta Colorada, and unfortunately, it is closed now.
This week on Jackson Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show, Jim is joined by the one and only Bird's Nest Jeff Herman for a week of fishing in Belize with Belize River Lodge. Belize has been on Jim's bucket list for years. With hundreds of miles of healthy mangroves and promises of tarpon and bones, the guys can hardly wait to get out on the water and fish.
I think one of the really cool things about coming to Belize really was that it was so easy. It kind of reminded me of Baja from where I am. In San Diego, a 2-hour, 3-hour flight. I'm in southern Baja. To get to Belize, it was a 2-hour flight from Houston. So getting here was simple. And the way they had this place organized, they met us at the airport, grabbed all our bags, took us on a 5-minute drive to the river, and then a 5-minute boat ride, and we were at the resort. I mean, couldn't have been easier. And then to get out here to Long K was a 45-minute boat ride. But it was so beautiful. I mean, we were in the mangroves and there were howler monkeys and going up the river. Just super simple to get here. Our initial destination while we were here on the trip at Belize River Lodge was to head to their remote outpost out at Long Cay. About an hour boat ride out to this more remote area, and just a beautiful little spot. I mean, you felt like, other than the fact that you have this nice little house, you felt like you're on Gilligan's Island. And just, I could totally picture myself just hanging out there, I could have sat there all week just looking at the water and just relaxing.
Kind of tough on the weather, but the very first day we got here, the owner proprietor, Mike, we asked him what makes a good fisherman, and he said persistence. And that's what we did. Even though we had tough weather conditions, we kept at it and ended up catching fish. It was all about persistence.
We brought on this trip, Jeff arranged the kayaks. We weren't really 100% sure what we were going to need down here. So he sent 2 Pt2s, and for me, he sent a Kraken.
The Pt2 is a tried and true platform for kayak fishing. The Elite takes it a step further. It's got a bunch of great features this year. I chose the Pt2 Elite for the Belize River Fishing Lodge because there's a lot of flats fishing down here. Bonefish, permit, etc. This is a boat that paddles well, but you can also stand up, sight cast, even fight a fish standing in the Pt2. So I figured it would be a great way to get after the flats fish down here in Belize.
Problem was, actually, it was kind of funny, is the one piece of equipment, and I travel with so much tackle, it's ridiculous. The one thing I didn't bring was hooks, because I was kind of told that we were basically going to be fishing artificials this whole trip, that there was no live bait fishery really here. So I didn't even bring it. And my plan was to bring a pack of hooks just in case anyway, and I forgot. So we had no live bait hooks. So with that, we started raiding my Sebile soft swimmer. So it basically was a giant worm hook to use on our live bait. Funny enough, they work really well. Oh, brother. It's got a little tarpon here, not too big. I was kind of babying it. I had him right near me. I mean, I had him within feet of my boat within a couple of minutes of the fight, and I just didn't want him jumping right on me. So I backed things off a little bit, and I don't know if I just lost enough pressure on it or what. I felt like I had good pressure, but that's typical tarpon hook throwers. Whew.
Stay tuned. When we come back, the guys dial in the pattern. With the bones and permit eluding them, they'll just have to settle with massive tarpon.
That's a good way to settle, I think.
That is, I'd forgotten about that little spot where you ended up jumping so many tarpons. I think I jumped 1 or 2, but you jumped 2 or 3 and then caught a bunch of them.
Yeah, I know I caught 3.
Yeah,
for sure. And again, they were on Patrick. Are you watching, Patrick?
This weekend.
Nice.
Oh, he's talking to somebody else. But yeah, on the I had no live bait hooks, so we used the hooks from my Sebile Magic Swimmers. It was pretty. So my wife, thinking she is very hilarious, look how nice you look with short hair and a trimmed goatee. She wants this gone. It will be.
Doesn't like the Gandalf. She doesn't like the Gandalf look, huh?
No. And let's see. Nicholas says Belize is a fisherman's paradise. Yeah, and like I said, the whole place was so cool. What is this? Zagrag forgot to say hi, Jim. Awesome. Hope I can buy some here in Sweden. Possibly. Buy them online and get them shipped. And Ronaldson says hello. How you doing, man? So I kind of commented on this the other day when I heard the first part. Do you remember that night when we were out at Long Cay when we were in the rooms and in the middle of the night wake up because our feet are getting wet because the rain is coming in sideways through the front door.
It seemed like almost a hurricane, and I had forgotten about it till you mentioned it. But yeah, that was something else because everything out there was on generator power. So at like 9 o'clock or, you know, whatever you call it, Caribbean midnight, when they shut the generator off and everything goes dark, it just becomes like you're just there with the sound of the wind and the water. And when that storm came in, it was like a freight train, and shutters banging, water coming into the building. But I think we got the windows shut and everything was fine. But yeah, that was a heck of a storm there for 10, 20 minutes for sure.
No, yeah, no, it was just one of those things. Like we just left everything open because of the breeze and everything was nice. And then I literally woke up in the middle of the night because my foot was getting wet. And it was like 20 feet away from the front door, you know, off to the side. So anyway, I always thought that was funny. Another good story was, do you remember Will with the drone?
Oh, absolutely. he had talked repetitively about how he can't mess it up because there's a Scotch penalty for messing up the drone. And I think he had it out of the suitcase for about 15 minutes when it caught a big breeze and clocked a tree. I don't know if it messed it up or not, but I know he was panicked.
It was borked after that because I told him because he got it. I go, dude, and because I think we had literally taken the morning off or day off from fishing because it was so windy. We were just hanging out in front, and he goes, "Oh, I got to get some footage of the lodge." And I'm like, dude, you might want to just not do that right now. It's pretty windy. Oh no, it's got wind stabilization, yada yada yada. And man, that thing went straight into a tree. And the funny thing was, it hit the tree, backed out, and hit the tree again. And then just
That's right. Oh, I forgot about that. So good.
Yeah, don't fly a drone in that kind of wind.
Too funny.
Let's keep her going.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to Jackson Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show with Jim Sammons. This week, Jim is joined by Jeff Herman for a week of fishing in Belize. Flooding and cool weather has pushed the permit and bonefish that they came to target out of the mangroves. So, change of plan. Time to catch a few big tarpon.
You know, I use live bait all the time, but where these guys are, there are a lot of fly fishermen. And of course, they frown on live bait. I'm all about live bait. I'm all about getting something that fish wants to eat. You know, I want to fight a fish. I don't want to just tease them with a fly. So if we can get live bait, I'm going to throw a live bait out there. So I'll be soaking a live bait and also throwing the poppers. So let that live bait do its job while I'm throwing the lure, and one or the other hopefully gets hooked up.
That was cool. All these freaking birds kept attacking my lure, and all of a sudden a frigate flew in and started looking at it. And I was just watching the frigate, and then just freaking out of the bottom is woohoo!
I forgot about that. On the popper.
Well, my blood's pumping faster than it ever has before. At least that's the way that it feels. There's a rumbling in my soul, my foot falls on the
Coming up.
Man, I wish we had tarpon where I live.
He's just doing circles here. Now he's in front of me, but barely. Someone shoving cold through my brain. My bones like steel rails, all my voice can in another life, I bet I was a train. Going left. Come Saturday night, seem like everybody knows when I'm a coming into town. They say if you stop and listen, hey, he's right next to me. Right next to me, you're off my bow. Just kind of turning around here. Going down. I can't seem to stop, so you best be getting out of my way. And you better wave goodbye. Come the end of the night. I never know. Showing me his belly. Well, I just got to be really careful here because Normally you have I would have a big circle hook, but I've got a double treble hook. So I'm gonna be really careful. I don't get one of those in my hand, but I want to be really careful of the fish as well. There it goes.
And I lost my
I'll
popper.
take it, had the leader in my hand. I just had to be super careful because I had 2 treble hooks swinging around. Got my popper. He's welcome to it. Boom!
Go, Jeffrey! When we return, it's the bird's turn to fight a beast. The best is yet to come.
Yeah, you have a tarpon, a fish that big with 2 treble hooks in it, and you're trying to. There's no place good to grab the fish.
Yeah.
You're gonna put your hand right next to it. I'm always paranoid about that. You know, just like, or sometimes you'll get a tarpon or any fish where the hook is exactly where you want to grab the fish. You know, you didn't get that good right in the corner of the mouth or anything. It's like, no. Do you guys get tarpon where you are in Texas?
Not this far north. I mean, they travel up this far. So, I mean, people do have a couple spots where they will try to catch them, but you got to go a little bit further south to get consistent shots at them. Port O'Connor is one of the local areas, maybe 2 hours south of Houston, where you can consistently target them in the summer and stuff. But it's not a mainstay fish in Texas, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. Are you still mainly throwing a fly, or do you just whatever it takes?
That's about all I'll ever throw these days is a fly. In fact, I tend to still, the only boat I paddle these days is the Jackson Journey. And I have an old Scupper Pro, but the Jackson Journey and a fly rod is what I go out with every time. So unless I see a tailing fish or I see a trout hit something on top, I basically don't even blind cast these days. So I still kayak a little bit, but I don't fish nearly as much because I don't blind cast. I just take that fly rod out and look for them when I go. So.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, I said I never really got the big attraction to redfish, honestly, the first few times I did it. And then the time that I went, where we went met up with Dean.
Yeah.
Dean Thomas, Soul Slow Ride. And on that trip was the first time I'd ever truly sight cast to tailing reds. And then when I saw that, it's like all of a sudden you get it. You know, it's like, this is so cool. You know, trying to be stealthy, try to get that cast in the right spot. And I mean, I've told the story before on that same trip is like, you know, we were tossing the tailers, and then I see this tail that's like this big come up out of the water. And I got buck fever totally, you know, threw a lure. I think I threw it 30 feet past it, you know, into a tree. And I immediately dropped that rod and picked up another one because the lure was in the tree. So I just grabbed my other rod and I cast it. And I think I hit that fish in the side of the head because it was like, I mean, no subtlety, no nice, just like, bam, there goes the fish.
Yeah, it's fly fishing. Fly fishing 101 is not lining that fish as you try to cast at it. And I probably lined 20 fish for every one I caught the first, few years I was fly casting. But it's sure is a fun way to chase them, no doubt about it.
And the bonefish here, we didn't really get it because we had so much wind. And I said my next trip actually had a lot of wind, but at least we saw a lot more fish. And that was 100% fly fishing and frustrating in the wind as a very much a novice fly angler like myself. But I mean, it's such a great location for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Walking that route. What people might not know is the reef, the barrier reef at Belize is like the second largest reef in the world.
Yeah.
Behind the Great Barrier Reef. And I mean, you can just walk that. We were walking it looking for permit on my next trip there. And it's just an amazing, amazing place.
Very cool. I missed that spot. We need to go back. We need to call Misha.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Mike is watching, so maybe he can put a good word for us. I did hit play, right? There it is.
Welcome back to Jackson Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show with Jim Sammons. This week we're fishing in Belize. After a couple of days of slow fishing in the mangroves, the guys have pulled into the channels and are fishing with live bait and poppers for hungry, hard-fighting tarpon.
So I paddled out there, was trolling a bait behind me, got bit, and just the power of that fish, immediately I knew it was going to be a good fish. It came out of the water once, and I saw it had to be 50, 60 pounds at least, and I'm just guessing it could have been bigger. Fought it for a little bit on a tiny bass rod, so it made for a fun, interesting fight.
Jeff, isn't this your song?
It actually is. There's a band I played in the
Walked in front of
early
kayak,
aughts.
maybe 10 or 15 feet.
That's what I
Spit
thought.
me after 5 minutes. But for those 5 minutes, that adrenaline rush, that feeling of power that's translating from that tarpon down to your stick as you sit in your kayak, just you can't beat it. It's one of the best feelings in the world.
Lo and behold, I get hit again, and just this big explosion. This thing just hit and screamed. I mean, it screamed off so much line before I even had the rod in my hand that I turned around just in time to see it go flying in the air. It's actually quite close already. There's my connection on my leader. Off my bow. Off my bow. I'm not. Just another carnival holiday. Just another. If he jumps now, it's either gonna be right next to me or in my lap. Just another carnival holiday. Another shipwreck on trains. Happy birthday. Here comes a hurricane. Happy birthday. Yeah, change his direction. I bow to no fish. King bow to me. There he is. I wouldn't call it necessarily a bow what I do in the kayak because I'm already so low, but I do allow my rod to kind of tip down. So this landing procedure, when he goes belly up, you can pretty much be assured you got him. Just come on, baby. So like I said, out of gear clicker on in case that happens. Keeps him from backlashing you, but you don't lose him. Oh!
And maybe he wasn't done.
Wasn't quite ready.
Playing possum, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that again. Out of gear clicker on. Come on. Boom! I like that release. Woo! I love that release. I had my hand on the fish. I had my foot on the fish. That's totally a catch. I just wanted to be really careful. I didn't want to harm him. So I was going to cut the hook off anyway. So I'll take that kind of release because it was cool. Boom!
When we return, the guys give the local guides a spin in their Jackson kayaks, and local knowledge wins out.
So if anybody was noticing there, I love that rod I was using. It almost had the action of a fly rod. It's quite long, which is great for throwing lures and all that, which was what I brought it down there for, was throwing. But then once you hook a fish and then you try to land a fish on a rod that long, on a big, like a tuna, a long rod just kills you physically. But on fish like this, it's more when you go to try and land it, trying to land a fish. And it's like I said, the same kind of thing with a fly rod when you're in a kayak, is manipulating everything so you can get to that line without almost high sticking and getting too much of a bend in your rod at the tip and breaking it. So
done that a few times. So
yeah, I've seen quite a few fly rods exploded.
Yeah. So sometimes when you get to the point where high sticking is the only way to try to get to draw the fish in, it's never ideal, but I've done that once or twice, and it's not a fun thing. That's for sure.
Yeah, they said it, and it's definitely more prevalent in the kayak because you're sitting down so low, just trying to get it into that position. I mean, if you're standing up high and you can manipulate the rod more to the side or whatever, but like I said, you're in that kayak, you just don't have that option. So, like I said, I've seen a few rods exploded from fish while in kayaks, and the main thing is keep your rod tip down if you can. But like I said, it's that landing part that becomes so difficult.
Yeah, I don't remember if that was an afternoon fish or a morning fish, that little segment where we jumped all those tarpon, but I've never seen that many tarpon in that small of a window, because I think it was like maybe a 3 or 4 hour period, but at the most it was 3 or 4 hours. But I think you caught three, we both jumped some, and it was just I memean, a crazy little situation where they were biting for 2 or 3 hours. Just so fun. So
yeah,
fun.
And as I recall, it was because it was kind of flat, gradually went out, and then kind of dropped down to a little trough, and the fish were like right along that edge, as I recall.
Yep, exactly.
Timothy Weeks, Belize River Lodge is a great time with excellent guides and hosts. We're planning on going back once everything gets going again. Yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough. It's just a cool place. The vibe there is just so cool. They said, I mean, the old fly tying table off to the side of the dining room, kind of an honor bar. You know, you make your cocktails, and then
that's right,
and put a check down, you know, that you made yourself a cocktail. And like I said, the communal dining room where everybody just sat together and told stories about their day of fishing was just so awesome. Let's keep her going.
For fishing in Belize. After an incredible 4 days staying in the remote Long Key Lodge, the guys are headed back to their home base at Belize River Lodge. One more day on the water for Jeff to shake off the skunk. Belize River Lodge has been an icon here for decades.
Thanks,
with old
Will.
school charm and decades of rich fishing history. The crew immediately feel like they've come home.
I'm Mike Husner, and we're here at Belize River Lodge alongside the Belize River. Primarily, I've seen it evolve in the last 30 years from, say, 80% spin fishing, 20% fly fishing. Now it's about 90% fly fishing. I always like to see somebody bring a spinning rod, because if the windy conditions or conditions are such that spinning rod is more practical. But, you know, if a guy brings 5 fly rods and 1 spinning rod, I know he's very practical and wants to catch some fish.
There's something special about going to an older lodge that's been around for just decades. I used to get the same thing down at Punta Colorado down in Mexico. I mean, old pictures of guys catching fish, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And when we walked into Belize River Lodge yesterday, it was the same thing. Old faded pictures of guys with big tarpon and bonefish and permit. It just has a nostalgia to it that it makes you just want to sit down and have a rum and coke and just look at the water and feel like you're Hemingway for a day. Last day in Belize.
Look how high that water is.
Kind of kicking around some ideas on different things we can do.
Crazy.
There's a spot that's supposed to be very picturesque, but the guys aren't convinced there's much in the way of fish there. So we may swing by, just take a look at it. It's really going to depend on once we get outside this river and see what the wind is like out there. And then we may get back out to the Sugar Bowl and try to play with those big tarpon again. Jeff really needs a tarpon. I feel for the guy. This trip, it's been my lucky trip. I've been in the right place at the right time and got some fish. And so far, Jeff hasn't managed to stick one. So I'm really hoping he can get on a good fish today. Our two guides on this trip, Mike and KP. I called him Kingpin. And KP was kind of like the old master. He was the guy who's been guiding for 30 years. I mean, he's been guiding a long time, knows this area so well. Mike's been guiding just maybe 3 years, I think he said. And so he was learning a lot from Mike as we went, and they were sharing areas that they knew. These guys really knew the fishery, they knew the areas, but they knew nothing about kayak.
I'm going to pause that just for 1 second, because I will say on our return trip, when I went, a couple of years later, Mike was the master. I mean, he had taken over. I mean, the guy, he was casting a fly like no other, and he knew the spots and, going by the tide and the wind and everything. He had learned so much over the years. He is an awesome guy to fish with. I highly recommend if you go there, jump on a boat with Mike.
Yeah, when I went back a year later with Scott Knoll, we had really bad conditions. I mean, probably worse than when me, you, and Will went. And they weren't great conditions when me, you, and Will were there. But when I went back with Scott, we had high winds, just not a lot of great ways to go out and take a kayak out. But Mike knew the spots and knew where to take us in the kayak and put us on fish. Now, granted, it wasn't tarpon or bones, but we got a good bend in the rods by some really nice Jack Crevalle, some snook, some other stuff. So, and that was all Mike's doing for sure.
Yeah, just a phenomenal guide and just nice as can be. I mean, the fact that he popped up here on this live show just to say hi, I mean, just a super guy. So
yeah.
I just wanted to pause it there just to give him some props.
Fishing. But the thing is, they were gamers. They were up for it. We actually got them both in kayaks, and they were just stoked on it. Actually, KP made the comment. He goes, "I forget this boat guiding. I'm going to start guiding out of kayaks," because he had so much fun doing it. It's not very often that a guide wants to jump in the kayak. And Mike particularly, he saw how much fun we were having. He's like, "I want to catch a tarpon off a kayak. That looks so much fun." So he jumped in a kayak. And after we gave him some basic instruction, taught him to paddle with his paddle the correct side up, and spent about an hour paddling around. Unfortunately, we didn't get him on a fish, but he was just having a ball. You could tell that he really wants to kayak more. And then, of course, the old master KP goes, "Well, if he's going to do it, now it's my turn." And he jumps in the kayak. And would you know it, he's in the kayak 5 minutes and hooks up. Man, to see the smile on his face as he was getting pulled around that first time, it was pretty incredible. Turned out to be a decent-sized barracuda. But, yeah, I mean, you could tell right there he was hooked. Of course, when it only takes 5 minutes to get your first bite, it makes it a lot easier to get hooked.
We're going to jump from poling that big boat. We're going to do kayaking after this.
Bringing my bait, it's dead as a doornail. And so I called the guys on the radio that had the bait. I'm like, because I was quite a ways away from them. I'm like, "Hey guys, can you bring me some bait?" And I got the wrong answer, which was, "No, we're making bait. You got to come to us." And the last thing I want to do was paddle all the way back there. But I had this dead bait, and I think I made about 10 strokes, and boom. Tarpon will eat a dead bait, and we knew that before, so that's why I wasn't too terrified about throwing it out there.
And it's raining.
And boom, it's on, and this one stuck, and it was another good landing of a tarpon. So, I had my opportunities at 5 or 6 tarpon on this trip, and cleanly landed 3 of them. Another one I had on for a long time, but I had also hooked it on a 40-pound test. So that was a mistake on my part. I had too light of a leader. Generally want to go 60 and up on the leader, 60, 80, 100-pound leader. So we went through a lot of leader on this trip. A lot of Seaguar fluorocarbon leader got chewed up by those tarpon, and That's a good problem to have.
So the very last creek we were in, I mean, I gotta admit, it's been a tough week for me. I had landed some small fish, and even though I had a nice jump on a big tarpon, I was bummed out at the last day. I was ready to get off the water. I was hot. I was sweaty. I even asked the boat, I was like, "You guys ready for beers yet?" And the camera boat was like, "No, not yet." Salmon was like, "No, we're gonna keep fishing for a few more minutes." So we went around this corner, and there they are. There's a rolling tarpon, and you can tell it's a juvie, but it rolls, and Salmon's like, "Herman, right there." And I lob a cast over my shoulder, and it lands pretty much spot on. Get a little bump, but I don't get a hookup, and then they bounce on the other side of me on the water. So I fire off a cast, and sure enough, I get hooked up. Jumps out of the water, I get 2 or 3 great splashes, and they weren't big, but I appreciate the guys saying, "Hey man, just 1 or 2 more casts," because it was 11th hour, and ended up getting a tarpon to the boat at the 11th hour, and that's always a good feeling, good way to end the trip. So great memory. Little bitty. Maybe a silver jack is what they call it. He was small. SML bounced out of the deck of the boat. They're just feisty when they're that small. You can pull them into the boat pretty quick, but they're like a ladyfish or skipjack. They're just not going to sit still.
Worn out from a week of amazing paddling in an incredible location, it's time to say goodbye to Belize. But we know we'll be back, because if Jim and Jeff have anything, they have persistence. And they know the best is yet to come.
What a fun trip, man. Even though I forgot how rough that trip was, but that was just such a fun trip. The environment, the lodge, everything about it. Just such a good time.
And good company. I mean, actually, we've always had a great time fishing with you. There was a comment here. Nicholas, great part about Belize is that you can eat the tasty barracuda, unlike a lot of places. Yeah, actually, we did keep that one. KP wanted it. So, yeah. I know, like a lot of places, like you said, they get that, what is it, trichinosis, cicatera.
Right.
And you can't. Frank is watching on Kayak Fishing Tales, another great fishing show, Jim. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. Jeff, I appreciate you, making some time in your super busy schedule. I know you're in a lot more episodes. You got to promise me that you can come back at least for the Uganda episodes.
Yeah, no, I'll make space for the Uganda episode. That might have been a worse fishing episode than this one as far as number of fish caught, but that was certainly an adventure and a unique trip. I'm so glad we did that one. So by all means, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of stories. A lot of stories. We should get Will on too. Just get the 3 of us on there, and because there was so much. I mean, it was cool. And like you said, the fishing was tough. Some negatives about it, but as we always say, it's those trips like that always end up having the best stories. And there's some good ones from that trip.
Absolutely. Uganda was an adventure. What was the name of that lodge in the middle of the river that we went to at the very end? I can't remember.
It's where that famous whitewater spot was, where all the guys came to train for the whitewater. The Hairy Lemon.
Hairy Lemon. There you go. Everything about that trip, that from the Hairy Lemon to Nile Rivers Explorers to the houseboat and the South African that had that houseboat, the whole thing was just enjoyable. Like Belize River Lodge, it was unique. It was an adventure. The cool thing about, I don't know that we could ever do Uganda again, but the cool thing is Belize River Lodge is still there. They're still booking trips. So as soon as you feel good about traveling, book a trip down there. You won't be disappointed.
Right. And they have the 3 kayaks we brought the first time, plus the 2 kayaks we brought the next time.
Nice.
And 2 of those kayaks are mayflies, and they actually have power poles on them. So, so really, really good setups for people who are interested in going there for fly fishing. And I may as well throw it up there one more time for people who are interested. It is Belize River Lodge .com. So, Jeff, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Yep. All the best, and all the best to Lenny, and try to stay warm.
Likewise. You guys stay safe. We'll see you soon, Jim. Take care.
Take care. Well, thanks everybody so much for joining us. Like I said, remember you have that discount code for, where'd it go? There we go. The discount code to get the hyperlastic dart spin. And somebody who within the next 20, or actually within the next week, who comments, shares, all that fun stuff, will have a chance to win a pack of hyperlastic dark spins from a band of anglers. So there is your discount code. And of course, that is at abandofanglers.com. We will be back. Well, tentatively, we will be back on Thursday. Like I said, I've got construction going on at my house still, and I've got a dentist appointment that day. So up in the air. But at this point, we will be back here the same time on Thursday for one of our throwback episodes to the Ocean Kayak years. So I appreciate everybody who joined us, who commented, whether you're watching it live or watching it on a replay. If you're giving us those thumbs up and comments and sharing it, we really, really appreciate it. And again, you will be eligible to win. Until next time, if you're going out on the water, please always wear your PFD and keep your paddle right side up. Y'all take care.